Well, welcome. Hello, everybody. I hope we're live at the moment. Just trying to check. Yes, we are. Okay, so a bit of a special idea here today. It's been a while since we've done an End of Dragons daily, and for this last week, what I thought it'd be right up until launch, what I thought would be really fun to do is to come back in full force, do a bunch of Q&A, and, really get excited as we wind down on these last few days. Now, that was my plan, but I also had all of these kind of early access press videos, which I wanted to release as well. And so over the past few days, you've been seeing those. In fact, even up to today, I just released, probably like half a day ago, 6-7 hours, my Echo Valve Forest tour, where once again I got boots on and we had a little bit of a chat about it. But I don't want to stop that for the whole last week doing End of Dragons Daily. So tonight I thought I'd do a little bit of a twist. What I have is a standard video of End of Dragons Daily that you'll see here on YouTube, but like with the big story replay that I just did, I'm initially pushing it live so we can have a bit of a mix. We can have a 50-50. Some questions that I've picked from the YouTube comments, and then some which are coming right now from people who were here when the video went up. So we'll see how that goes. And essentially what I'm hoping for, and I may have to repeat this a couple of times just because, here we're at the very start of the video, and this is very impromptu. A lot of people might miss it. But basically, the more questions we get, the longer this will go. If chat is very dead, just for total transparency, people watching the video later, it's 5 to midnight right now. I ate a lot of sugar earlier today. I had a crash, and then I had a nap in air quotes from 5. I just felt horrible. So I napped from 5 in the afternoon till now at 11, and I was like, oh, I want to do this video, so I'm doing it anyway. So anyway, it's very impromptu. I don't even know how many people are still awake, but those who are, ask questions in the chat, and they'll, we'll keep the party going. And I'd like to do that. This won't be the only episode. I'd like to kind of go out on a bit of a bonanza, to be honest with this. It's funny, we're on episode 97, I think, of End of Dragons Daily, the Q&A. So we can get at least 3, go to the big 100 videos rolling into End of Dragons of discussion and punditry. I think that should be pretty cool. So let's just open up immediately. On my first video, where I did a look at the world map, I explicitly said in the comments, hey, I want to bring some Q&A back, ask me some questions, see what you guys have got. And so from that comment chain here, I've picked a couple of messages just for some roundabout discussion here. So this is Craig Blumenthal, who says, thank you, WP, super jealous. I assume this is covered by NDA, but do you know if they've changed the elite specs in any meaningful way post-beta 2? For example, allowing mechanists to be usable underwater. Yeah, it's kind of funny. A lot of people were very, very curious about this, but I wasn't given any explicit information about this. I think you could dig around and have a look, but since I wasn't given any explicit information and wasn't told, hey, do this, I figured they probably didn't want people snooping too much or looking too much. So I really don't have any information for you. It's interesting that you say beta 2 there, because obviously there was a beta 4. I hope that they've continued to make extra work. Now, I've said several times in many of these other Q&As and back and forths and little moments, the elite specs actually, I think, are one of the weaker parts of this expansion. I guess I can admit that in the past few days, now that I really know I'm going to be in there and I'm going to be playing soon, and because in the early access stuff I got to play a little bit more Harbinger and get into the flow of it a bit more, I guess I'm a little bit more excited about them. But not too much, honestly. I would like to see the full patch notes. Now, I kind of was a little bit bad with my commentary. I actually really dislike a lot of my commentary on the last few videos when I'm having these casual chats with Boots. See, when it's a casual chat with Boots, unless I want it to become this nightmarishly long, abominable video where it's filled with editing and me asking him to do do-overs and stuff, I would rather sit down and just have a casual one take with a bit of banter and a bit of back and forth. But that also gives me a lot less control. So I made a lot of weird little inaccuracies and odd statements. So, for example, that the video I did today with Fort Aspenwood, that's not actually a meta event, but I was under the impression it was. And there's lots of little things like that where, to be honest, I'm not too happy with kind of the stuff that I said. And in that video, or at least one of them, I kind of suggested to Boots, or the way I phrased it, because often it's a matter of phrasing that just throws people off. I think I gave people a lot of people the impression that there was going to be... Hold on, let me mute the in-game dialogue here, because it's so loud, even though we're nowhere near any of the NPCs. I gave the people the impression that there was a ton of balance changes or whatever, but when I was talking about those, I really just meant like the flamethrower changes and stuff like that were posted a while ago, and I've already done a video about. So, yeah, I really don't have anything for you guys on that. I wouldn't worry too much. I mean, I think elite specs are on everyone's mind when you have no fresh content to play and nothing fresh to do. But the truth is, most people don't think very deeply about the combat system anyway. And they'll be happy with quite a wide range of things, I think, that the devs throw at them anyway. So, you know, to think of the elite specs is just a bit of a flavour on the side of the X-Pack, and I think there are more exciting things to be thinking about for a while anyway. So yeah, that's question 1. I just want to take a second. Thank you again to everyone who's here live and already using the live chat. Ask me questions. Any questions you have about my early experiences, I'll answer to the best of my abilities. But obviously, if it's still out of NDA and stuff, because the truth is, guys, I have like a mix of knowledge now that is safe to talk about and not safe to talk about, and I kind of have to be very careful. I have my own. And then there's actually been like a lot of turbulence over the weekend of like people jumping the gun on various things. And I'm not sure I should even be specific about what any of those events are. In a couple of days when the expansion's out, I'll happily do that. But so yeah, have to be I will be very, very fine and like spoiler free and so on for you all. But I do warn you over these next few days about what kind of Guild Wars content you consume and where you get it, because man, there's been some stuff. I can tell you that. Oh, also, footage in the background here. It's not meant to just be me wandering around in Bloodtide. I kind of want it to be in Wild vs. Wild. But you'll notice I've got this horrendous bloom on me. Yeah, this isn't necessarily intended. I'm looking into Guild Wars 2 Hook. So just a quick little refresher for everyone. Last year, my PC was exploding, essentially. And I let people know about it. I can't remember how it all came about. I really can't. But you guys in the community rallied in this insane way over the Dragon Festival last year. And we crowdfunded a new PC, a really good PC, which I'm still incredibly grateful for. And I can promise has massively helped with content ever since. Like, for example, the big story replay that we just did, where they're like, you know, 7 to 9 hour video parts over and over and over again. Those never would have happened on the old PC because it was just exploding and breaking constantly. Anyway, the big motivator back then, now this was a year ago where we didn't have an official release date and we were all thinking it was going to be last summer. I know, it seems like a long time ago now, doesn't it? But we all did think End of Dragons was going to be last summer. And the idea was that this PC, I could really analyze, get the right graphics settings and the right reshade settings to make it look as good as possible and work as well as possible. And you know, now's the time really. So like sometimes, like right here, I actually think the bloom looks really good, and I think the lights and stuff. And obviously I don't have anything too crazy on my character. I mean, there's a bit of bloom around the UI down here. But so yeah, I'm in the middle of customizing that, and that's basically what I'm doing here. I'm walking to different areas of Tyria, and I'm getting a sense of what things look like. And every now and then we can pop our a Guild Wars 2 Hook window and have a look. Now, here's the other thing I was doing is I did actually have a quick peek on the Guild Wars 2 developer Discord. So if you're at all interested in Arc DPS add-ons, by the way, which I might also set up, I don't know, what do you guys think? Should I set up Arc DPS and the scrolling combat text and stuff for my footage? So if you're interested in any of that, there's a Discord where all the devs, like, you know, spotlight their stuff and talk about the patches that they put in. And I did have a look at the graphics scene, and there's been some stuff going on, but it strikes me Guild Wars 2 Hook's really still basically one of the right ways to go, so I don't know. We have Luma Sharp on here as well. I don't know whether that actually... I mean, it does help a bit. I don't know whether that comes through in the footage, though. Anyway, I don't want this to be a whole, you know, really, really big deal with the configuration stream. But yeah, also, I might have some announcements for you guys about what I'm actually planning on doing here. I really should have pushed a video today, but... I mean, full release week. But I'm still not sure, so we'll get to that in a minute. Let's do another pre-packed question, and then I'll start taking some questions from the live chat if you guys like. Okay, so next... Because that first question wasn't really much of one, let's be honest, shall we? Pick something else. This is from the same comment chain, when I put up the world map video. This is from Nicholas, who says, just finished watching you your Ghost of Ascalon audiobook, so I really hope they address how humans are still thriving in Cantha, even if they aren't doing so well in Tyria. Well, this really struck me. You know, Guild Wars lore's been going on long enough now that it is starting to feel a bit weird when you, depending on what area of the lore you look at. Ghost of Ascalon was still very much entrenched in this early idea that the humans were on the back foot, that they were like the elves of this franchise. They were falling out of favor and influence, and other races were stepping to the fore. And, you know, in the context of Guild Wars 1, all the playable races were humans. And in Guild Wars 2, there's lots of others. Obviously, that makes a ton of sense. But nowadays, you know, I don't really get that vibe even from Tyrian humans. Yeah, it's really weird that this person asked me this question, because the fact that the Canthans are doing well, they're doing well because of Jade Tech, right? And that's fine. But I sort of view them, even with Jade Tech, as kind of being, like, equivalent to other humans. I guess I'm going to have a very distinct different feeling later. You know, Divinity's Reach is not filled with holographic whales sailing around and technological electrical wires and zip lines and stuff flying all over the place. I get it. So, you know, it definitely is true that the Canthans are doing a lot better. But, you know, we had Path of Fire as well, where once again we're looking at a big human nation. I don't know, the humans, okay, we're looking at a big nation, but it's more of an undead nation, right? Can we still call that human at that point, you know? Do we credit Joko as a human? I mean, once upon a time, but at this point not. So yeah, maybe actually this is a really valid question to ask, and you've been thinking about it because of Ghost of Ascalon, but I think it's going to ring true, just in kind of different ways at this point, you know. So yeah, kind of a good one. All right, let's see what we got live here. Should I scroll up, do you guys think? My God, I'm so goddamn thirsty. Oh, well, I have to say, we've had a $10 donation with a comment, so I'll read that. There you go, there's a question. It's from LaSalle Rhymes. Thank you. Can we get new specs as soon as the patch goes live? Yes, you can, yeah. As soon as the expansion comes out. That's as long as you own the expansion, that's an expansion feature, and you'll get them, yeah. Okay. Any other questions that dig in deep on something? Let's see. Oh, is the new God of War and blinding everyone? Yeah, I know. That Mesmer is meant to look obnoxiously shiny and glowy and chaotic because, you know, that's, I don't know. It's just an interesting outfit. I use a really crazy shiny Warclaw with it, so I'm just a giant glowing ball while I'm around in World vs. World. Okay, here's a question. Is story the first thing I plan to do in End of Dragons? I mean, the way I will play it, okay, now, I'm kind of on the fence. I'm not on the fence. I will probably be sharing my first experiences of End of Dragons with you. And when I say probably, I mean like 95% chance. We'll get back to that bit in a second. But no matter how I do End of Dragons, I'll be playing it like I play every other, like, big gaming product. Not even just Guild Wars product. Not even just Guild Wars 2 expansion. It's, the way I will do it is I will load in. I'll have a little bit of a mouse around on various UI. I'll look at achievements. I might look at some skins, stuff like that. I'll probably would have spent like a good 5 minutes just marveling at character select. Then what I'll do, and if there's like patch notes right then and there at launch as well, I'll probably read some of those. But then I'll do story, and as soon as story gets me into another, I'll probably try and do some of the side achievements first time as I'm playing. But as soon as story puts me in a new map, I will probably put the story to the side and just start exploring. Speaking to NPCs, opening merchants, swimming around, climbing on things that I shouldn't, you know, looking at the environments, doing map completion, whatever I can. And then as I start to like spiral out, if it looks like there's a green starburst that I really should have by now, I'll probably go get that, and I'll weave a little bit more story in. And then I'll spread out more, and then, you know, and I do not beeline one thing or the other. I can absolutely say that. It very much strikes me that the way that Guild Wars is made, the way that the studio wants you to play, is that they want you to appreciate everything, you know? It's that thing of, like, if you just beeline story in Heart of Thorns, you get frustrated by mastery gates, and you lose really decent story context in all of the meta events. That was also true in Path of Fire. You miss a lot of stuff. Path of Fire was actually especially good at, within the personal story, having, like, optional green starbursts, like, with the Blast Crystals and stuff. But you miss a lot of stuff, you know? So, I will be spending time, and I'll probably get 100% map completion before going to a new map. So, for example, let's say this was POF. I would play POF, and then when it's got me to the gate here, and it's, oh, this is a new map, I'll probably 100% the map. I don't know whether End of Dragons is actually structured such that we zigzag and weave all the way around, like all over the place. But that will be my play style. I won't be taking a break to go to World vs. World. I won't be taking a break to go to PvP. And I won't be taking a break to go to Fractals or doing dailies or any of that stuff. Screw all of that. I've got years of that, probably, right, as they cancel the next expansion in the background. I got years of that for afterwards. God, I hope they don't do that. We need a communication about the future, man. We really do. I mean, I described this on Discord earlier. Someone said, you know, I'm not so... I think it was in my YouTube comments. Or it might have been in the Spud Discord, which, by the way, again, there's a link in the description if people want to join. It's been pretty active at the moment. So's just the guilds in general. Someone made the comment that they're very excited about... They're not very excited about End of Dragons, but they're really excited suddenly about Guild Wars 2. And that might sound really bizarre, but it's actually something I feel too. And I described it as this, that basically, like, I look at End of Dragons as, like, a few new pages coming into the game. And it will be good content and so on. And that's all well and good. But what End of Dragons really represents is, like, is a whole book, you know? It's not just about those first few pages. It's about that crucial thing. Do you remember on the End of Dragons first look, 6 months, back in summer now? At the very end, I think it was Colin Johansson had at the end of the stream specifically said, we're focused, and this kind of spirals off of Ruby's comment from the forums before, but like they went that extra step to clarify it, and they said, look, we're really focusing on Guild Wars 2. We're not putting Guild Wars 2 aside. Essentially, the subtext here, we know Season 4 felt like a finale, and obviously there's been a lot of insanity, but we really are and that to me is what actually matters, you know. This is like the big catalyst for getting people to remember the game exists. The other big catalyst will be the Steam release, and then it's like, okay, so just fresh start, man. All right, what are they doing? What are we doing? It's Guild Wars 2. Let's see what Guild Wars 2 is doing, and that's what actually really invigorates me and feels me feeling fresh and so on. So yeah, I think End of Dragons will be great, but my excitement for it is honestly dwarfed by all that other stuff, because I do have my disappointments about End of Dragons. I'm not too into the environments. Now, this is a thing I've seen a lot with a lot of my early access footage. Guys, I really, really did everything I could to make the game look as good as I could without also being a massive frame tank, because they had to put us in Zerg content, which was just... But so I did everything I could. It's not minimum settings. That's the footage. But I'm getting a lot of comments of people saying it looks ugly. Like, really nasty comments of saying, did the art team quit? Why is it so foggy? Why is it so green? Why is it so this? And, you know, to a certain degree, I can't disagree with those people. It's not a big excitement of mine. Echovald Exploration is kind of the big one out of all of them. So we'll see. I think it will be redeemed by certain other things. And my last video, which you haven't seen just yet, in Kaineng, I think will be quite interesting too, for you guys to get your eyes on. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is there are elements of End of Dragons, the Elite Specs 2 being a big thing, that I'm just kind of a bit iffy about, you know? So it's not so much about that. And I hate to be in this same place. I'm saying this over and over and over again. I really, really loathe that wheels spinning in the mud feeling, but that is how I feel about the game. Okay, so let's do another previous question. Jesus Christ, I've got to stop. Even in Corteria, they're going to let me stop for a second. Let's turn Bloom off here real quick. Bloom is such a love-hate thing for me. Jesus Christ, the floor looks crazy here. Is this really... What's my hotkey to toggle the whole thing? That's with it turned off. So I guess Reshade is just pointing out how weird the lighting is on the floor in this area. So there is a comment in the Spud Discord about how, like, a lot of Guild Wars' lighting and stuff seems to be broken at the moment. And you can actually get a glimpse of it in my Echovald video. Did you guys see the bit with the Rottwallow? And the, and I think it's the Phoenix come out of one of the cages? And it looks like... What was the message? It's like their MIP maps are broken. Is that what it was? Or something? Specular lighting or something? I don't know. I'm on my depth here. Also, it looks like Reshade is hitting my UI right now. The whole point of Guild Wars 2 Hook is to not do that. Am I crazy? Oh, this looks good though here. Yeah, we're gonna have to find the right balance, certainly. All right, next question. Add a little bit about the Canthans and the and their strength compared to other humans before. This time we got Mooplis, who says, were a majority of other players in this build playing a specific profession, or was it well-rounded? I guess this isn't the most interesting question, but it was in the chain. I honestly didn't check. I honestly didn't know, and I honestly didn't care, because it's a Guildhall capture mission, which we knew was going to scale, and it's just a dynamic event chain, the God's Vengeance stuff, which again you know is going to scale, and it's open world. I mean, and also it's pre-expansion balance. You know, they might do a tuning pass. To tell you the truth, I don't know how late of a build that was that we were playing. I really don't. So, you know, there was like that bug with the gravity sucking everyone in, and I was kind of like raising my eyebrow at a moment like that because, you know, I guess the impression is it will be fixed before launch, but I played that very recently, you know, so I don't know how representative of the final game it is. I was told at one point that there are certain things I can show, possibly, but it would have to be with the caveat that things are subject to change in the future. And I don't think I ended up showing any of that stuff in the end, so whatever. But that disclaimer's floating around, that whatever you see in the footage, whatever experience I had pre-release, things are subject to change, so just bear that in mind. And I think they wanted to make it clear that people felt that way. Okay, Jesus, the live chat's moved a lot now. I'm gonna scroll down to some of the more recent messages here. If you've got a really good burning question, feel free to copy paste it till I see it. Anyway, that dang boy said, thank you very much for the $5. Says, was there anything you saw that turned your 6 out of 10 excitement higher or lower, or did it stay the same? Great question. That's a really good question, isn't it? So if people missed it, I said that my excitement for End of Dragons was a 6 out of 10. I said that both Heart of Thorns and POF were 8s. To tell you the truth, certain moments of the Heart of Thorns pre-release stuff, it was probably at a 9. I don't know, I think my communication style, I tend to sound a lot more excited than I am on the inside to a lot of people. But yeah, they were 8s probably, and my one for here is 6. Did it go to a 7 from playing? Honestly, no. No, it didn't. I think I'm still exactly at a 6. I think I still have the exact same feeling about it. And a big part of that's not necessarily to the fault of the game. I don't want to be a downer to people there. I think a part of it is that what we were shown and given access to is what ArenaNet themselves had already streamed, right? We'd already seen the Guildhall. We'd already seen huge chunks of that area of the Echovaled Forest and hints at the God's Vengeance stuff. I mean, there was a little bit in there where we actually see further stuff in Fort Aspenwood. There's a little bit of extra stuff, but generally speaking, if you followed the press, you get a feeling of what it's going to be. And you know, I've been playing this game for 10 years. A dynamic event is a dynamic event, right? And unless it's really, really detailed and intricate and beautiful, like some of those Heart of Thorns ones, like Season 4 started hitting, it's not going to wow me. And what they showed didn't really wow me. You know, the little bits that were new wasn't enough to me. I mean, it feels like Guild Wars 2. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it just feels like Guild Wars 2 as far as Guild Wars 2 was. I think for it to climb higher, I mean, there is obviously the matter of the world map. So Shaman had an interesting point on his... it is hitting the UI. Why is bypass UI not on? When I made that world map video, Shaman said on one of his tweets... He, like, tweeted it out and was talking about it. He said, well, in my video, I said, look, it goes much further west now. You can see more of the supercontinent. You can see more of that lake up in the Blood Legion homelands. Now, Shaman said, actually, it doesn't extend any further west. All that they've done is go east now and north, as well as obviously the south sections. Which seems to be a contradiction to what I said in the video. And what that is because Shaman's familiar with the actual data file. The actual data file, even right now, before End of Dragons, for this world map, is already painted. You can already... Like, if you data mine it out, that detail is there. Like, that green coastline, you see it's just being hinted at here. That green coastline, this thing, up near Deslana, that's already... You can already see that if you rip out the client. What they've done in End of Dragons is actually just extend the scrollability. So, it's like an in practice, it will look bigger thing. In practice, it will feel more special. But the information's already there. So, you know, a lot of what I was looking at on the world map, I was looking at, especially what flagged up in my mind was the green thing when I was at that point in the video. I was like, I swear I've seen this green stuff before. And it's because I had. It's actually quite old. I think it's from episode 1 of season 4. But all the other stuff, I mean, the world map thing was quite exciting. If anything was going to get me up to a 7, I think it was going to be the world map stuff. But as you just saw me talking about with the big story recap and how I feel with respect to the wooden cascades and all of that, I think some of the magic is permanently dead. In those respects, to be perfectly blunt about it, some of the magic is permanently dead, and the expectation of where we'll go with that stuff also. You know, this is the thing, we don't know what is coming after End of Dragons. We don't know when Living World Season 6 is, whether there's a Living World Season 6, whether Living World Season 6 looks like the Icebrood Saga, or Season 4, or Season 1. We don't know anything, you know? They could go in a completely wild tangent now and just say, okay, the first year after End of Dragons is all strike missions, right? Maybe they believe strikes is all the, you know, I don't think it's totally realistic. But they might say, okay, let's do something slightly more realistic. They might have a really wacky take where they say, we're just going to progress story and expansions now, and we're just going to give you maps and stuff and expansions, and all the patches are PvP, world versus world, strike missions, you know. And believe me, I'm excited about that prospect in some ways. A Glory of Tyria strike mission, a return to Dragonstorm, you know, all these fights. I did my video on it a long time ago now. You know, I think there's some merit to that. But in that world, if we think that that's even remotely realistic, and to be honest, no, but let's indulge the idea for now. What does the world map mean when I look at it? Oh, okay, in the year 2026, I might get some of these places, you know, like we need to know release cadences and stuff. I said this a while ago. It's kind of like, look, these are just the first pages in the new book. The ultimate ending to End of Dragons, the absolute best ending to End of Dragons, it's not about the substance of the end. It's not about the appearance of the end. It's just the end should be a very explicit comment that another expansion is coming. Like, straight away. Like, I'm talking final cutscene, trailers, credits, and a trailer comes in after the trailer. You know how we felt at the end of Season 2? How Season 2 in-game pretty blatantly had a big cutscene trailering Heart of Thorns and had the Heart of Thorns logo and stuff. It needs to be like that explicit. That is the best ending to End of Dragons because that just makes people think instantly. And then when I look at the world map, I'll be mind blown. You know, I'll be very, very excited and very thrilled. But that's sort of my feelings on that. I'm still a 6. Maybe pushing a 7. Maybe. A lot of it comes down to masteries. Well, here's the other side of the 6 and the 7. It's where you've had no substantive detail. Why can't I speak? That's the bit that would usually get cut out. Why haven't we had any like details about like more on how we craft the Aurene weapons, more on what rewards look like in, you know, and what currencies we're getting and what we're building them towards and stuff, you know, like how Heart of Thorns had scribing and, you know, like real, like tangible stuff about guild halls and all that. None of that's really here. It might be there in the expansion, but it's not being talked about. So therefore I stay at a 6. Okay, let's do another question from the comment chain. I've got to figure out which one I had picked previously. Hold on. View extra large icons. Okay. So this was Moo Pliss, right? Which was that one. Okay. So here we have Mike, who says, from what you could see, how big are the maps compared to previous expansions? This is a good question. It's a good question because I didn't even think about it. And it's an interesting thing for me to reflect on the fact that I didn't even think about it. Now, I believe there's a post on Reddit right now where someone has like tried to guess at the size of the maps based on the like level 80s. Oh, I had a comment on my video where someone saw the Isle of Istan, right? And they saw there was a tiny little 80 on the side of the island. And they were like, oh, look, there's an update to Istan. A part of the story is going to be on Istan, guys. And he was so enthusiastic, and I was like, oh, this guy just doesn't know about Farron of the First City. Which sucks, you know. That kind of wide-eyed enthusiasm and feeling that anything could come with the expansion, you know, as long it's gone from me. And we all know that it's only going to be localized, goddamn, in the new areas, right? I mean, if there's a Dominion of Winds, that would be amazing. But yeah, so why am I still being hit? What the hell hit me? Did I get sieged from like a million miles away? So, I think there's a post on Reddit where people are trying to guess at what the square sizes might be. And they look smaller based on that person's guesses, which I think is credible. Than the Alolan maps. But it's hard. It's really hard because Cantha's really far away. It's hard to get a sense of the scale of things, you know. So it might feel small according to world map art, but actually be every bit as big as the Desolation. But I mean, the Desolation is enormous, guys. Like, truly enormous. So I don't think that they're quite going to the POF scale. But here's the thing. I don't think it matters. I really, really don't think it matters. Maybe it does a bit because mounts ultimately power creep people, which is going to suck. But, like, some of my favorite exploration in the whole game and dynamic event stuff and gathering stuff is Drytop. Drytop is tiny, man. Drytop is not a very big map. You know, it's a tiny fraction of a POF map. And ultimately, I think it is a better... I mean, hell, we can go there. Why not? It's a better map than a lot of the, like, Season 4 stuff. This is a better map than Drizzlewood. And Drizzlewood dwarfs it in size, to me. I think this is an incredible... Again, it's invalidated by mounts, though. So I think mounts necessitate a certain scale. So, as long as End of Dragons gets over that hump, that bar... Since they weren't brave enough to reduce mount progression or introduce a totally new pantheon of mounts and disable the old ones, which I think would have been such a good idea. I know people are like, I don't want to lose my mount. You don't lose your mount. You still have your mount in Corteria. You still have your mounts in the POF areas. You still have your mounts in Heart of Thorns. You still have your mounts in the Icebreed Saga areas. But if they're like disabled in Cantha and that gives them the space to do new flavors on totally new pantheon of mounts, they could have done all kinds of things. And it would have felt really fresh like POF did, I think, if they'd engaged with that. I don't know, maybe that was too much work or something. They'd rather work on a Jade bot mastery. Anyway, so yeah, as long as they get over the bar, that means the mounts don't destroy everything. Beyond that, the maps don't have to be that big. And I think Drytop proves that. So it honestly didn't cross my mind. It's kind of a weird thing, though, because then one of my big indulgences is looking at world map art just in general and speculating and getting wide-eyed and enthusiastic. But I think what I'm looking at there is more like subjective details about what Tyria's like rather than gameplay within Tyria when I'm just looking at world map art. You know, like the islands that were revealed to be just to the left over here of the Fire Island chain. There's like a huge island that's like this length, right? And it is big. It's weird, you don't get the impression when it's surrounded by water, but it's a big island. You know, I'm not really thinking about, oh, that looks like that would be good because it's a fair-sized in-game map, you know. It didn't cross my mind at all. And that's an interesting thing to reflect on from my perspective. The questions I've stopped asking as much as the questions I'm still asking about expansions, yeah. So, yeah. Okay, let's go. Let's take one from the live chat. Okay, so here's how we'll do it. I'll explicitly ask you guys. So, people in the live chat right now, you got a question, or did you ask one earlier? Just copy-paste it, and I'll grab one. And in these few seconds, I'll have a sip. I poured myself a cup of coffee here. And some water. You know, I've been in a really weird place today, where I know I've been really thirsty. It happened last night, too. I know I've been really thirsty, but I can't bring myself to drinking a lot of water. I don't know why. I usually love water, but today I don't know. I feel weird. Okay, here's a good question. Wait, did I see the new loading screen? I don't know what you're referring to there. I've seen many loading screens. I don't know about... did the devs release something else cool? I mean, it's currently the weekend, so... The devs choosing to launch the expansion on Monday is an interesting idea. I guess what they all do now is they get to chill out, relax, not think about the game. Hopefully they're not hawking Reddit and the forums and, you know, watching videos like this and stuff. They should just be chilling, clearing their mind completely. You know, this nice little calm before the storm for them, and then to work on Monday and see how it goes. But I think what that means is we're not really going to get any final moment press. They might have queued some stuff up. They might pay some people some overtime to do that. I don't know. Are the new mobs challenging? No, not really. I didn't really get a great sense that they were any more or any differently tuned to how the rest of the game is. Look, challenging mobs in the open world is a conversation as old as time. And what I would say is this. The game is 10 years old now. They've probably settled on what they want combat tuning in the open world to be at this point. If that is something that was still in flux and they were still wrestling with, I think that would be that would be kind of worrying. Like, okay, so very early Guild Wars 2 alpha stuff, it was clearly a very different tuning and very different pace. Throughout Heart of Thorns, they tried to bump stuff up. You remember the early Heart of Thorns betas? They really cranked it up. Heart of Thorns really felt like an expansion for veterans in a lot of ways in those early implementations. But people cried foul, like hard cried foul. Because you got to remember, you got to think about all these fair weather players, guys. People who are not on this video right now. And, you know, really do... Like, I was watching... Jesse Cox did a video about Guild Wars 2, which I was amazed to see. I could talk quite a bit about that. But anyway, I was looking at his video comments. He only has, like, 20 people on it at the moment. But there was someone who was like, I love Guild Wars 2 because I can play the game and then ignore it for 5 years and then just come back and there's no hassle, right? And there's so much about that comment that just... That's both the ultimate fantasy of Guild Wars and the ultimate curse of Guild Wars. Like, that there is the yin and the yang of this franchise right there, encapsulated by this random guy, right? But that's what people are like. You can't expect a person like that, who sincerely means what they're saying, this is a good MMO because I never play it, right? As insane of a comment as that is, which again, I'll try to gloss over, you can't... Open world combat has to be for the lowest common denominator. You can't tune things that are remotely difficult for a guy like that. So when you see the Heart of Thorns betas, you saw that they nerfed stuff way down. Path of Fire, out the gate, I think they had a very safe combat tuning. And they were fine with it. I've told this story before, but when I actually got flown out to do the POF stuff, the early access stuff I did for you for POF, I could talk a lot about the difference between that and this one as well. But, was actually kind of, like, challenging in some places and kind of grindy and kind of hard, you know? The kind of gear I had, the kind of build I had, and the keybinds all kind of went into it as well. But I remember the devs explicitly said, right, this was a couple of months before POF came out. And the devs explicitly said, we haven't really worked on the combat tuning yet. That pass comes quite late. And I think what ArenaNet does is they just play it as safe as possible. And safe as possible means as frictionless as possible, as easy as possible. Just the slightest sense that maybe you should react to some enemy animations and stuff. But generally speaking, they don't want the open world to be hard. And they're basically right with that viewpoint, okay? Like, you know, there's a lot of, like, business and demography stuff to think about with that. But the reality is, as well, is it's just not fun to be getting your shit kicked in the whole time. Unless you're on a really good build, right? That's another question I got on my mind about playing the expansion. Like, what kind of build I do. Because this build, this character, Liz is super overtuned. This will completely invalidate the game. I just did the entire story with white armor, generally speaking, and it was really fun. So I think I might play End of Dragons with white armor. And I think I'll actually add a lot to the experience for myself with that. Just by, like, literally taking it into my own hands to play a crappier build. That if you learn anything about Guild Wars, you're going to invalidate it, essentially. So, yeah, anyway, expect safe combat tuning. I don't think they even really think about it. It's not a question on their mind anymore. They figured that lesson out a long time ago, Heart of Thorns. And that was, like, what, 6, 7 years ago, man? Again, that's a cool question from the live chat. It's not something I often think about. Okay, let's go back to one from the YouTube comments of the previous video. And in a minute, we'll go quick on this one. And again, I'll take another one from the live chat. So next, I like this guy's username. This is a really cool username. Look at that. That guy you never knew. There's some art in that name. Makes you think about the nature of the internet and all these other people that are probably just dogs or robots. that you often don't think about. Where you see the Jade Sea on the mountain ridge, it resembles a dragon head. Am I just seeing things? I saw this comment a ton. I don't think it's anything, guys. It's, oh god, what's the psychological phenomenon called? It's para something, isn't it? It's like the man in the moon, you know? It's like people see faces. There was an area of the Guild Wars 1 map art that people saw face as well. I think it's just people looking to... I mean, what is your suggestion there exactly? People think that it looks like the logo for End of Dragons. And I mean, that's kind of a cool idea if the devs had managed to implant or imprint that in there. It's just a whirlpool, man. It's just the shape of the JT. What are you saying? That the physical dragon looks like a logo? It looks like a 2D logo, and it's side-on, buried in the sea. The whole sea is the... I mean, what? We're saying the whole sea is a dragon, are we? The reason I picked this comment is because I've seen a lot of people saying that. But no, I think it's just a coincidence. And not too much more to take from it. Okay, let's get a question from the live chat. And I'm going to find somewhere else that I consider beautiful to drive around. I'm going to go to the Desolation, because once again, I need to drive home to you guys just how beautiful the Desolation is. And in my full story replay through, unfortunately, they only added about 40 minutes of story gameplay here. Maybe I'm being unfair. It's probably about an hour. A jungle's been a dragon before? Sure, and that was like the defining thing about that dragon. You really think they're going to copy that quirk over, and that's going to be it? And at that, did Morgemoth look like a logo in the jungle? Or did it look like a jungle? Do I think that the map art could be expanded even further? I do. I do. So I never made this commentary on my pre-release End of Dragons video, but my view after End of Dragons is to do another expansion, but it's totally new. I say, give that creative team, give that studio a break from... sorry, I got an in-game message here. I'll read this in a second. Yeah, I'm saying, give them a break from constantly having to look at Guild Wars 1. You know, it's not that there's no Guild Wars 1 devs at the studio anymore. It's not that there's no passion for Guild Wars 1 at the studio. I believe both are true. There are a lot of Guild Wars 1 devs. There are a lot of long-term thinkers. There are people who knew the original game. There are people who want to cater to that original fan base. It's not that there's none, but I think, you know, come on, man. Like, it's the sequel game. They should be allowed to go to other places. This whole idea that they're obligated to do Cantha in the first place just because it was in the first game, I think was sketchy as all hell and, like, pretty shallow line of thinking in the first place. We've now hit the big three, and for all of its faults, the Icebrood Saga has actually canvassed the Eye of the North areas too, sans the depths, right? So the Icebrood Saga's got that covered as well. Now, most people are saying Utopia. I think that's really short-sighted. I know that Zoteka got somewhat canonized by the art book recently, but there's also that idea that the devs used to say, I don't know whether they still believe it, but I think it should still hold true. The only true canon is the canon in the game. They're not required to go to the Mists and do Zoteka straight away. They're not required to do anything purely Guild Wars 1. I think that for once, after this expansion, we should just get a totally new island, a totally new world. And it's not just about allowing the devs to be free and unshackled and just do what they want, you know, and really experience that. Whether they're old hat and fatigued or they're just totally new and feeling out of touch with Guild Wars stuff. But it's the community as well. I think the community deserves something fresh. I want to feel what I felt when Eye of the North came out. And that it was all very, very new feeling. Or when Nightfall first came out, which were the two big moments. The only two big moments in this franchise for me, where it felt like we weren't retreading old ground. So, all of that said, I think the next expansion should just be somewhere new. A new island, somewhere. And it can be from the Dermot Priory map, or they can even change that as well if they like. They can change some of them, extend the world. And the hilarious thing about that whole world map video is despite all of the new scrollability, none of that actually includes the terrain that would facilitate what I just said. I want an expansion somewhere totally new. That would mean another expansion of the world map art, wouldn't it? It would. I know a lot of people say that the new compass detail in the bottom right is suggestive that they'll never expand it again. But I don't know. I think that people lack a lot of imagination with that. Yeah, so what? Right now, when it says mag, and when you click mag to go to the west, it takes you to the Maguma jungle. So what? What, like that can't be triggered to, you know, point to a different area later? You know, and the localization text cannot be mag, it can be sun, you know, for sunrise crest or whatever. Come on, obviously they can update that. Obviously. It's not like it's some game-changing, hard, stuck forever thing. So yes, I believe the world map can be expanded again, and in fact, I think it should be expanded again. I would like Living World Season 6. The only big thing I think Living World Season 6 really has to do, and I even say that in quotes, is the Battle Isles. But I'm beginning to believe, I'm not beginning to believe, I fully believe, and I've been in this camp for a long time, I think that Guild Wars should do Farina the First City style map expansions from now on. What do I mean by that? What I mean is, I think that Living Worlds and their patches should take us to new territory. They should take us to new places to explore. They should give us a sense of what's over that horizon and what all these other areas are. You know, that island that gets revealed south of Istan, or the Isna Isles, or the Mittani Keys, and Latenda Bog, and, you know, if it looks like maybe Istan is not just... It looks like maybe Istan is just half of Istan, right? As I said in the video. So, places like that, you know, or Togo's estate, and all of that, right? I believe we should go to places like that in Living World. But I think it should just be like a DRM. It should be like a story instance. This is fine for giving me Farina. Do I need hearts here? And meta events here? And currencies here? And hidden side scavenger achievements? Though there are, obviously, from the playthrough. Do I feel like... Let me just ask you all this fundamental question. Do you feel like you visited Farina and it was fun in Guild Wars 2? My answer to that question is yes. And they did not have to do all the insanity that they did at Sandswept, and the insanity that they did at Istan, and the insanity they did at Corner, and the insanity that they did at Jahai, and the insanity they did at Vabi. You know, so I really do believe in a different vision of things where, you know, take me to the Cat Scavenger's Causeway, but just have it be an instance. It's just a story instance up there. It's a big one. Maybe it's a bit replayable because you've learned a bit about DRMs. So look, you've got replayable, fresh, new excitement in new areas of the world, and that is a lot more cheaply made with a lot less moving parts and a lot less to imprint in it than what they've been spending their time doing, you know. And so you say, okay, so WP, so then where's the rest of the content? Aren't you just pitching a smaller Living World? Well, no, I'm not. The rest of the content is at the Bone Palace, to use POF as an example. Give us the Desolation content that we otherwise would have lacked, right? Or it's at the Vigil Keep, right? Or it's, you know, with the Captain's Council, or it's with our people in our home instances. You know, there's a whole MMO. There's a whole world. And so to keep it POF, you know, more at Amnoon and so on, you know. And in that way, I think you can have your cake and eat it too. I think the balance is super askew. And look, if you have not... my big Guild Wars 2 story replay I just did is essentially the same format as my Final Fantasy one I did before it. Play FF14 with me. Watch those videos. You will see that the Living World can be better and much more accurate. They don't do maps. The reason they feel like they've got so much is because instead of doing the Sandswept Isles, they do just a Farina style thing. And they call it a dungeon, for what it's worth. That's what they brand it, which is a better branding than ArenaNet has. They messed that up when they moved to Fractals. I would suggest branding these as dungeons, but that's a side comment. And the rest of it, they focus on their like raids and stuff. That for us is going to be strikes. That for us is going to be fractals and potentially our own raids too. I don't know where the team sits with that. But that's what it should look like, you know. Living World Season 4 should have taken us here as a single instance, just like Farina. Like, there's a lot of... And this is something I really noticed on my big Guild Wars 2 story replay I just did. There's a lot of fascinating, great little innovations that Team 1 did. And then there's a lot of great, fascinating little innovations Team 2 did. And then there's a lot of great, fascinating little innovations Team 3 did. But they were separate teams. And their ability to collaborate and communicate what they did and what worked so well, and especially in view of audience feedback, which obviously comes many, many months later, so it's harder to pass. That communication clearly did not exist within the studio properly. And so a lot of stuff fell by the wayside. But they figured shit out, man. Individual collectives figured stuff out, and it's just the studio needs to really take stock of that. This is the thing that I'm talking about. This is what Guild Wars is about. These are the real stories. It's not End of Dragons on Monday. It's everything after. And we have nothing from them that's even hinting at any of it, really, you know. No communications. Anyway, so suddenly that became a high-level thing about the future of Guild Wars 2. And that spiraled out of should they expand the map again. Well, there you go. I think they should. And look, okay, so just to tie this back to the map. When you then have a massive map, it's okay to have a massive map. Because this little island I was talking about a second ago, the island that does this in the, you know, next to the Ember Bay or whatever. Sorry, the Fire Islands. They could do a map there. This island, south of Istan, they can do a mission there, you know? And you can hint at something big. Okay, and I'll give you one other thing as well. Look at the Jade Sea in End of Dragons and the inland border thing they have, right? So, like, you think of maps... It's very hard to break away from your current understanding and expectations of what Guild Wars 2 is, right? But, like, we think of a new map and a new exploration as, like, a rectangle carved out. So, for example, when we think about this... Island coming... it's not a good example. What's a good example? Okay, let's say the Delta up here. No. I don't want anywhere with water. Alright, let's say the Woodland Cascades, right? We think of it as a rectangle cut out of the Woodland Cascades, just like Drizzlewood was. Is that really that captivating? But what I'm suggesting is this rectangle cut out is like a dungeon DRM mission style thing, like Farina was. But you use you just use the map boundaries. You would look off into the distance, and you would see the suggestion of great forests and cliffs and waterfalls and caves, and you would see, you know, the deer and stuff running around out there, or other mysterious creatures. It would feel like you're really there. They would give you a great impression of other stuff happening. And as long as the stuff that is happening is meaty enough, it works. You know, Bastion basically is exactly what I'm talking about. It's just that Bastion is themed underneath the forest. Imagine if Bastion wasn't themed underneath the forest. I mean, hell, the entrance of Bastion here... I mean, this gets me all wide-eyed and giddied because you could actually see, like, some suggestions about it. So anyway, I believe that can work. And anywhere, you know. And obviously, if we do pick the Delta, it makes sense because you would just hint out the waters out there or whatever. But I mean to look inland, to look in at the Delta. And now you can have a giant world map, and you can expand it as much as possible, and you can be pretty scattershot about where you put people as well, as long as just that little wriggle. And I appreciate it's frustrating to have to write over and over again, that wriggle of how do you enact travel to those locations. Oh, this time it's a charcopter, this time it's a submarine, this time it's in a surrogate. Realistically, I'm in this game for the adventure, okay? Any RPG I'm playing for adventure. And when the adventure is bypassed and I'm teleported through any mechanism to my location, I'm always a little bit disappointed. But as one final example for you all to map this into POF, the Desert Gate, this should have been a long, narrow DRM Farina style mission. This should have come in. And it could have been implemented that way. And it's a lot less doing that than it is adding hearts and adding bounties and adding maps. Maps, Jesus Christ. Like interiors and exteriors and, you know, all this crazy stuff that comes in with every single thing. I think that that's a realistic idea, for sure. And it will hit all the beats. But yeah, there you go. Maybe I'm just looking at the competition too closely. Who knows? I don't actually know where this sound portal goes. Okay, next question. That one was from the live chat, wasn't it? So let's do one. By the way, anyone donating, you're guaranteed to get your question answered. I mean, I can't just let that sit there. So let's do that actually real quick. Full Brumby with $10. Thank you very much. Says, I think they will do Living World that's Cantha related afterwards, so they can reuse all the expansion assets just like in Season 4. I think you're totally right about that, yes. So I just gave a bunch of examples here about POF that would stay in POF areas and use POF assets. I think that, yeah, a Living World season. There are a lot of other questions that we can go into, like how long should that season be? Will people stand 2 years? Well, new assets are hard to talk about because honestly, I don't really like a lot of living world exploration when it is fundamentally reusing the same assets over and over and over and over again. It's like I've already seen this. Is this adventure that captivating to me and so on? Which is why, again, I'd rather... Guild Wars needs to be more about less voice acting, more substantive, meatier, text-based story. So that it's the story I'm really interested in, because the exploration is always going to be a little bit hindered in open world, in living world, because yeah, it's always going to be based on assets that you've already seen, just reconfigured, and that's always going to be a little bit of a disappointment. So that can't be the ultimate thing to leverage. The ultimate thing to leverage is story. Story. And story in Guild Wars is shallow and cartoony at the moment because it's not, I think, text heavy enough. That's my thing with it. I mean, that's probably woefully inept observation. But yeah, so no, I do think End of Dragons will, you know, when we go to Togo's estate, it's probably going to feel a lot like the Jade Sea, but with snow around. The one thing I will say is, I mean, it depends how smart they are. Maybe they can leverage a little bit of some of the POF assets. Maybe they somehow work. Or a little bit of what they did, you know, on the Ring of Fire, maybe. Or a little bit of Ori and stuff can creep in. We already see that with the Unchained. A little bit of what they did here, a little bit here. You know, maybe they've got a big enough stockpile. And they're genius enough that they can create really new feeling things just by scaling assets to different sizes and configuring things just right. Maybe it works, you know. I don't know, but I do acknowledge that's a bit of a problem. There was another one as well, a little $2 donation that I appreciate nonetheless. Thank you very much. Cool name, by the way, Dougal Keen. When will they post the new Elite Spec balance? I have no idea. I'm not in the know on that. I have no idea. I can tell you that I was pretty disappointed by Beta 4 balance, and I was horrendous. I had a very negative reaction to CMC's little interview. So I don't know. I'm kind of like trying to not think about it right now because I honestly don't have much faith in that side of things at the moment. Okay, let's do a question from the comments. By the way, can I just say, anyone watching this as a normal video who never made it live, please drop comments down below because they will feed the next part, which I hope to do tomorrow at some point. I don't know when. I don't know what's going on after I just had my crazy nap that had me wake up at midnight. Okay, so the next question here is from Lawfy Lucia. This is more of an observation, I guess, actually. Why did I pick this? It's good. I mean, it's a great observation. You can see I love-hearted it. Lawfy Lucia says, I'm just finally seeing the edge of the Maguma. Makes Heart of Thorns and Corteria maps so much more immersive for me. Yeah, I feel the same. Oh my god, I love my sky scale so much. This is just the coolest thing, man. Liz is so badass on this sky scale and with this outfit. I cannot get over how I have dyed this. It's so good, right? This is the most badass looking dragon, dude. Yeah, anyway, sorry. Yeah, it looks good. It looks good. I don't know. I think it's not so much just seeing the Maguma coast, it's being able to zoom out. Do you know what I've always not liked about Guild Wars on the world map? Divinity's Reach looking that big. It doesn't really match with the idea of the lore that the humans have sort of rescinded a bit from the world or something. I know it's like their big last bastion, and, you know, one of the things that Vanilla really nailed was the cities and the sense of scale. You know, there were a couple of things. Divinity's Reach was one. Looking at all the animals, looking into Holbrack as well was another big thing. There are a lot of these things, so I get it, all right, I get it. And it was transformative to a degree for an MMO to do such an incredible environment like that. I get it. But I have always been a bit like, oh, man... A city, and then this is the rest of, you know, like, this is too high of a proportion of the world map. Or too high of a proportion of Kryta or something, I don't know. I mean, I've really got to think about all of this as Kryta to settle me, and even there I'm pushing it. But with the new map, you can zoom out so much that Divinity's Reach actually starts looking really small. And the Maguma jungle looks really small as well, doesn't it? I mean, and yeah, there's something immersive that comes out of that. To see how small those places now look. Which again makes it very, I think Cantha look deceptive. Because Cantha actually doesn't look that small by comparison. So I think the Cantha maps are pretty huge, to be honest. One other note, okay. On the Spud Discord, I can't remember who it was. One of you guys did this I never responded to it on the Discord. Like, moments after my video, you guys had spliced together all the frames of the world map into one giant map, right? And then made a GIF doing a comparison between that map and the Derman Priory floor, where it like fades back and forth. And I was like so impressed with that. Like that came out almost instantly. In fact, I should grab that off of Discord and put it in the video. I should definitely show you. I was blown away by this, and it revealed something really cool. Oh god, but there would have been so many messages in Discord since then, and I can't remember which channel it was in. All right, let me just keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. I'm doing it now. I'm looking. I've got to put this in the video. I was so happy with it. Okay, I found it. It was Mr. Modius. Okay, I just got to download it, and hopefully I can... Technically, it counts as a video on Imgur. That's curious. Now, let me see here. You've got to be careful not to play the wrong video for you guys, because I actually had to cut around a bunch of other NDA'd information in my tours with Boots. Which was not fun. In fact, was very tedious, but well, again, we'll get to it later. Okay, I don't think that... Oh, I can't find it. Oh, yes I can, yes I can. Okay, here you go. Guys, you got to watch this. You got to look at this. Please tell me this works. Yeah, oh, beautiful. Mr. Modius made this. And this was really fast after... Oh, the value that this has actually added to the video. I'm really happy with this. I hope people haven't tuned out yet with that goddamn 8-minute attention span thing. So look at how cool this is. Now, what do we notice? This is Guild Wars 2 versus the Derman Priory map. Well, they're both Guild Wars 2. The Derman Priory map is also Guild Wars 2. Well, you will notice that Cantha is resized and repositioned. The Battle Isles are repositioned from the Derman Priory floor. That island south of Nightfall, of Ilona, is entirely new. That's an entirely new thing that they've added. And you'll notice that the western continents are also repositioned and changed, and possibly off screen at this point. So you can look at this in two different ways. You can be a miser. You can be depressed about this and depressing about this, and you can say, "Oh, look, they're not fit into their own canon, their own lore. None of our previous." Wow. Hold on. By the way, why is there a sleeping Choya here? I've never seen this. Why is there a sleeping Choya here? Dude, I love this UI of the Zeds. Look how good that is. I think that's from 2012 too. Look at how good that is. I don't know. There's something about this, how stylistically that's done. The animation is just brilliant. I actually get nostalgia looking at that for some reason. Just sort of the vibe that you get from it. Anyway, okay, sorry. Sleeping Choya distracting me. You can be a miser about it, all right? Well, and you can say, well, look, they're not adhering to previous canon. Our previous speculations are irrelevant. And I think maybe there's a version of WoodenPotatoes in the past that's on that and is, you know, totally agreeing with that mindset. But to be honest, I actually kind of like that they shifted this stuff. So maybe it's because I know sort of where this Derman Priory map comes from. Let's be very clear here. The Derman Priory map was literally just a copy-paste of the Order of Whispers globe texture. The Order of Whispers globe texture is not a proper map, right? It's a globe texture. So, a bunch of the proportions at the north and south, like we get in the real world with the Mercator projection stuff, is completely off skew. Doesn't really make any sense. It's made certain regions of the world look a lot bigger than they should. It's not a real map. It's not proper cartography. It's just a data mined texture. And then, yeah, in Season 2, some devs, for fun, took that globe texture and printed it as though it were an actual map on the carpet floor. And they put annotations on it. But ultimately, it's not like the structure of Tyria that was being depicted there was this super well thought out or like properly planned thing. It's kind of like a loosey-goosey fun thing, you know? And it's like something for ultra nerds to like speculate about. And in the age of the internet, that then becomes main discourse because people like me signal boost the hell out of it. But I don't know whether it was ever something they needed to super adhere to. So when you see this orange map here, I mean, don't worry. Look, the annotations on that map list 2 of the continents as just dev names. Like, it says one of the continents is Gwen Ye, who was just one of the devs, one of the artists at ArenaNet. And I think the other, who was the other one? Quan Peng, I think was the other one. Like, they're not to be taken that seriously. So, to reveal many years later, I mean, Christ, please don't someone do the maths on the difference between Living World Season 2 and when I was doing the Abaddon speculation to today. I mean, that crushes me. The fact that so many years later we get a real world map and the positions and stuff have changed, I totally buy it. I think it's totally fine. And you know what? It actually unshackles them. This is what I'm talking about with the Guild Wars 1 thing as well, you know. I don't want them to be shackled. Let them do whatever kind of geography for whatever kind of map that they like. You know. There's also the fact that some of the geography for those further continents, I actually really like the shape of and kind of want to use for some islands in one of my con worlds. So if ArenaNet don't do them, they're totally free for me. I like, they're not actually on the map here, but one of the continents is like these twin islands and they're kind of snake-like and they look really cool. So yeah, anyway, so Cantha's moved, so to speak, but I don't think it's a big cannon break. What can I say? And I like the new art. And this was really cool. So good job to Mr. Modius for making this. And this is still just a tiny proportion. Again, the most important thing that this unshackles us from is something I think that, you know, Guild Wars is an old franchise. And before the years of this map and the Order of Whispers globe texture that I don't think was ever meant to be scrutinized in the way that it was, you know, we had no sense of true boundaries, which is very liberating and very exciting, and that's returned now. Who knows how big Tyria is? You know, this is the whole video on its own, really, the stuff that I'm talking about here. You know, because I think that that's a really key point I'm trying to get across to you. Who knows how big Tyria is again now? Now that they've demonstrated that this stuff is malleable. Who knows? And there's a certain captivation that comes from that for me, so I enjoy it. All right. Let's take another one from another donation here. Eddie Kazada, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. They say, WP, if you could have a home anywhere in the world of Tyria, where would it be? And why is it that small village in the underworld? I can't remember when I covered that years ago. Did I say I liked it and I found it cozy? I'm sure I probably did. Man, I always like playing Liz because she's unfogged the Key of Adashim, which is like some of my least played content. I'm never in the Key of Adashim. Where should I go while I answer this? Let's do some circuits around Dragonfall. Very pretty and quite no-brainer for me to do. If I could have a home anywhere in the world of Tyria, I don't know whether I'll probably be like some hermit. I'd probably be somewhere. Well, okay. How realistic do we want? Do I want to be in a place with a lot of bugs? No. Do I want to be in a place with a lot of war? No. You know, or hostile, antagonistic factions. Do you know what? Honestly, I'm not the biggest Sylvari fan, generally speaking. But probably the Grove. Okay, actually. Kaineng. Upperclassmen in Kaineng. Because that's probably the closest to the comforts of modern real-world life, right? So therefore, that's probably the place I'd be most suited to. You know? The climate's okay there. Yeah, you know, there's probably a lot of city corruption and stuff, but that exists in the real world as well. You can probably escape from it if you're a little bit careful, you know. You got the funds, you got the resources. So yeah, probably just try as high up in the city as Kaineng as I possibly could, in New Kaineng. That's probably where I would choose to live. It's a boring answer, but I think it is the only true answer that most people watching this video should go with. Okay, next. Let's get a question from the standard comments. Oh, I can't quite answer it here just yet because we're being attacked. So let's deal with this. Okay, there we go. So Q61, 612 says one thing I think is very interesting is how large the continent is, and yet okay, so this is a discussion that's come up many times in the past. I just want to put a point on it. How large the continent is, and yet the Elder Dragons all choose to live in an area around 1/10 of the size of the world. I mean, lore-wise, they can handwave it, as that's where the gods settled for the last sleep because of the magic and ore. So it's fine. But the other parts of Tyria have been left untouched. Are we to be expected to believe there is nobody living in Dislana or east thereof? Honestly, the rest of the supercontinent might be the most interesting mystery for me in terms of things we haven't seen yet in Guild Wars 1 or 2. So, there's a lot of facets to this. First of all, assuming that the deep sea dragon is in Cantha, that already breaks. The deep sea dragon not being with the other 5 kind of breaks that pattern in a nice way, because I do agree that on the face of it, it looks a little bit funky. So it's nice to have that irregularity in the pattern. And I actually think End of Dragons might be a really prime real estate to talk about that phenomenon a bit. If they go with a story where the deep sea dragon's good for some reason, or at least different in some way, sympathetic to the races of Tyria perhaps is one side of it, but maybe something else, you know, related to them. Well, whatever they do with deep dragon lore. If they explain, oh, it's really far away as an extension of the fact that this dragon's different, I think that's all quite good. But then, yes, you do have the fact that 5 dragons in this tiny area. As far as I know, there's not actually any hardcore true canon reason for this. The only things that exist are head canon, okay? But there are some logical conclusions you can draw. You mentioned the gods. That doesn't make any sense, really, because the gods came here only 1,000 years ago. That's 9,000 years after the previous rising, and the Giganticus Lupicus went extinct. Okay, you got Seers and Jotun and Massar and stuff here on Tyria 10,000 years ago. That's their struggle. The human gods are a relatively new phenomena. The human gods are just 1k years ago. And so in the personal story, they kind of suggest that the source of ore and the ley line hub and whatever beneath ore is like this super great place. And we do know that Zaitan's sleeping under there. So you're reversing cause and effect there, probably, by suggesting the connection. If there's a connection, it's the other way around. It's that the gods went to ore because of Zaitan rather than the reverse. So then you can do the whole ley line thing. I don't like ley lines. I didn't like ley lines when they started talking about them in Living World Season 2. They felt way too lifted out of other fantasy and just sort of suddenly constructed. But then they became a big thing, and then they got used as this great MacGuffin at the end of the Icebrood Saga as well. I mean, if you actually analyze... I think my big playthrough of Dragons, the story that I've just done, kind of revealed to me just how much Dragonstorm and the Icebrood Saga fell apart because of that random ley line MacGuffin that they construct in that final moment at Champions Part 5 or Part 4, whichever one it was. I don't like ley lines very much. You could do that and you could say, well, look, there's just loads of ley line hubs here, but then all you've done is you've moved the goalpost, right? Well, why are there loads of ley line hubs here specifically? Okay, so you don't want to. So you've answered the question as to why all the Elder Dragons came here, ley lines. But now you have to answer why are there so many ley line hubs here, and you're in the same place. So I don't like that. Oh god, we were in the brainstorm. So I don't like that either. My favorite headcanon for this, okay, and again, I would love the devs to actually explicitly talk about this in the context of why the Deep Sea Dragon isn't around potentially, is actually the Bloodstone. You know, because they established that each of the races found out something amazing in the battle against the Elder Dragons. The Forgotten found out how to cleanse corruption and bring sentience back. I mean, wow. That's incredible, man. So, that was like their major contribution. The Seer's major contribution... Let's not get into the Jotun and the Telescope, which is a bit iffy at the moment. And then the Massar are obviously interesting because they're so self-interested they bailed. And they found a way to escape and go into the mists, and that was their own contribution for their own self-interest. They're like the Inquest of the previous Rising, or just perhaps you could even say the Asura of the previous Rising, is how I've always looked at them. In the Stellaris mod, I've got some allusions to that. Anyway, the Seer's great contribution to the Bloodstone, they gather all the magic up, and they hide it behind this technology where the dragons cannot get at it. Now, think of this as a Hail Mary last thing to try and save the world and preserve a bit of the magic. Now, my headcanon is actually, you can say that the seers are the saviors of everyone and everything, you know. Like, because that little bit of magic is left, when the gods get here, it can be distributed, the humans get a taste for it. Maybe everything spirals out of the fact that these goddamn bloodstones are here, which I think is so cool, you know. And you got to credit the seers with that. So, why are all the dragons interior? Because this is where the seers were around. And that's the coincidental part of it, but that's satisfying enough. The seers ended up, and the bloodstone was here that they had constructed. So slowly, you know, at least the Icebrood Saga suggests that Elder Dragons are just drawn to magic, like literally drawn to it. So there's a bloodstone here. Maybe they're just drawn, but they can't get at it, and they end up falling asleep after they've eaten their fill, and that little bit is left. And that's why they're all around here. So that's kind of my answer, but it's a headcanon thing, and it doesn't quite work. Because, you know, the Elder Dragons aren't hungry when they fall asleep. They've eaten their fill. So what does that suggest about Dazlana and all these other areas in the world? And how much life there might be there? How much magic there might be? Well, I don't know. You tell me. But there you go. So that's my feeling. Okay, back to the live chat. Okay, so we haven't had any donations or anything, so I'll just pick a regular comment here. Hey, WP, you low-key gave me the final push to buy the X-Pack with the hype on the previous videos. Thank you, I'm really glad that you'll be playing. Whether you use my link or not, for what it's worth. I don't even know if my link's working, but if you did use it... By the way, guys, if you buy the game and you've forgotten to use my link, which literally supports me financially... You get a window where you can go back and click it, and it will retroactively count, I think. I think there's a window of a few days, so you can do that. It's in the description, so you can feel free to do that. If you've got your mum or your sister or your brother or whatever to play it, some old friends, do feel free to have them click it. Anyway, let's get a real question. Hi, WP. Do you feel as if this isn't the last X-Pack that Sorry, hi WP, do you feel, if this isn't the last X-Pack, that this points to less feature-heavy expansions, legendary specs, mount zones, utility, etc., based on POF to End of Dragons comparison? Good question. Okay, one thing that your question made me think of, which I'll just point out straight away. We were talking about a hidden thing in the expansion, you know? I'm kind of at war with the community at the moment here, as I often like to be. And I was even Boots. I even heard Boots say it. I was so disappointed in Boots in our commentary the other day. Ah, he let me down. He did this thing that was like, oh, what's the hidden thing? There has to be a hidden thing. I hate this idea that there has to be a hidden thing just because the Griffin was a hidden thing. It's like, look at the context of how this expansion was made. Through COVID, after the layoffs and all that stuff. And you're going to hold them to a hidden thing as well. I mean, look, I'm all for the consumer having as high standards as they want to have, right? And holding the studio to high standards, I mean, Christ, I would be the biggest hypocrite in the world if I didn't admit I did that all the time. But I think expecting a hidden thing, like, it's just so, it aggravates me. I don't think we need to expect a hidden thing. However, Boots and everyone else, I do think there is a chance for one hidden thing. I think they might hide a legendary aqua breather. That seems exactly possible and appropriate. And when I think about POF, yes, you had the Griffin was a hidden thing, but do you know what was another like fairly transformative, decent reward scheme that came in with POF? It was the 32 slot bag progression. There was ascended bags and stuff, right? Now, I get that that's not really on par with the Griffin, but I think they might do that, right? If you think of it as like the bag expansion equivalent. So, this is going to be a good... Oh, what? That's the end of the chain, is it? I want to just chain through a bunch of thermal tubes. So maybe we'll see that. Okay, now back to the question. The question is this the last feature at Heavy Expansion? This is a great question. It's a rough question to answer because I deeply believe that there have been a lot of really dodgy decisions that have gone into Guild Wars 2 over the years. That short-sighted thinking, decisions that have benefited the short term, not the long term, that actually mean Guild Wars 2 as a platform to develop forever is a nightmare. And is really challenging. And I would like to see expansions that introduce features that address some of those fundamental issues, right? Stuff like, what the hell do you do? Are we really talking about getting 50, 60, 70 elite specs, right? Stuff like that, right? There's real problems with the current expectations, and I think that certain things need to go away and new features need to step into their places. I think elite specs, for example, are cooked. And I think that there needs to be something really satisfying to replace elite specs that are actually more piecemeal and, you know, more efficiently made and so on. I think there's a lot of that stuff. I think masteries. I think guild halls. I think that, you know, even like crafting and stuff. Fundamental things that other MMOs have and can leverage, and Guild Wars can't. Because short-sighted thinking over 10 years. So I think there's actually a lot of stuff that needs to happen. But, on the other hand, and I get that I'm being very vague here, but at the end of the day, I mean, what is this? This is a Q&A video. It's not a WP fixes the game. In his opinion. On the other hand, I've been saying that there's a lot through End of Dragons. Maybe Guild Wars isn't just a place where it needs to be content focused. And, you know, I feel like a bit sick in my stomach saying that. Because this is not new, guys. I was saying this half a decade ago. I've just lived through the back half of my 20s, and I'm saying the same thing. This was literally a quote from the studio at POF. Heart of Thorns was feature-focused, POF is content-focused. Have we forgotten that? Why should End of Dragons go back now? Why should post-End of Dragons go back now? Haven't they got the fundamentals? So maybe it's just iteration that needs to happen. I believe that iteration will not do the job. But so, I mean, it's very, very, very hard. Also, it depends. It's in the mind of the beholder, you know, like what constitutes feature-rich to a person. Like, did Cooking 500, imagine this for a second. Let's say Cooking 500 never came in with the Ice Brood Saga. Let's say nobody talks about Cooking 500. Nobody thinks about Cooking 500. It was not well enough designed to have really captured people in the long term, right? It wasn't a very good feature as far as I'm concerned. But let's say it came in with End of Dragons. If that was a bullet point for End of Dragons, how would you guys be feeling about the expansion? Would you be feeling it's more featureful? What about build templates? Again, came in with the Ice Brood Saga. What about some of these mounts that actually came in as a course of Living World, but realistically I think could have been bullet points on an expansion? Is that feature? So, you know, maybe expansions can just do stuff like that, and Living World can cut the shit. Living World doesn't have to do this, because if you put something in that's brilliant in Living World, it will not get the press it deserves. It will not get the, you know, it won't build into the vision of a really big, exciting expansion if they just held it off. Savviness. This is the kind of savviness that I don't see from ArenaNet. But I wish I did. So, I don't know. There you go. That's some meandering, rambling thoughts there. Let me give you something really decisive as a final comment here. Oh, I don't know. I don't have a decisive final comment. They could go either way with this. Look. If they really give a huge crap about Guild Wars 2, and they want Guild Wars 2 to be a lifestyle game for the next decade and then some, which other studios, cough Square Enix, are comfortable saying, right? Look, what I think ArenaNet really needs to telegraph to the community. Something has happened to the MMO industry over the past half decade, 6-7 years. I think studios have realized that properties don't need to be replaced with sequels, that you can sit on the same product and keep updating it for years, and it's very cost effective and it's a good idea. And you can have your identity on it. I think studios are realizing that. And when you've got Square Enix happily saying there's going to be 10 years of Final Fantasy, here's all these graphic updates, it's the same game, blah, blah, blah. I think ArenaNet need to respond in kind and think about Guild Wars 2 in kind. And if they are already thinking that way, they need to start talking to the community, the public, about that ambition and how they feel. And in all of that context, yeah, I think they need to take a hammer to Guild Wars 2. So I think there should be more features. I think there should be reworks. many of which I've discussed some of my favorites in the ideas in the future, in the past, sorry. But whatever form those take, I think that, yes, there should and would be further features in further expansions. I think going all content all the time does not fit the vision of a Guild Wars 2 10 years in the future when it's built on so much short-sighted thinking currently. That's what I think as a veteran of the franchise and someone who understands the product. If you ask this same question of a Fairweather player, like that guy I talked about earlier, who only plays Guild Wars once every 4 years and therefore think that constitutes it as a good game, which I completely disagree with. I like that, by the way. Thermal tube, mushroom, thermal tube. That's a nice little sequence they had there. If you're that player, you're probably going to be thinking something else. But those players don't love Guild Wars like I love Guild Wars. And they don't want everyone else to love Guild Wars like I love Guild Wars. You know, those players are just dropping mindless platitudes of ill substance once every few years. So anyway, alright, Next, let's zigzag back to the YouTube comments. I don't actually have many more from here, so we're going to be relying purely on the live chat. What do you guys think about this format right now, by the way? Do you guys think it's good? Actually, this is the last one. This is the last one I grabbed. It's Mike again, who says, interesting how much larger the whirlpool is around the Harvest Temple. That is one bright green color for the Jade Sea. That might have changed a bit since it's unfogged. Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about this because I have a little, but I haven't much. I really think something's going on there, guys. I really don't think that that's the harvest ceremony destruction. I think that I think there's been another event, and the event I think it is. Here's my guess. I think. Now I don't think people are gonna like this because of the last. Oh, do I do it? Screw it, let's do it. I'm going to make a real prediction. There's a chance for this to be wrong. I think Kunavang's dead. I think when the Jade Sea Dragon awoke, Kunavang went to fight it because Glint told Kunavang to, or they agreed to together. I think Kunavang died just like Glint died versus Kralkatorrik. Just like Vlast died. Oh, no, I shouldn't say that, because Kunavang's in the trailer, right? It's subtitled in the trailer. Unless that's like a vision crystal. No, I don't know. I'm not going to make that prediction. I don't know. I think it's too old hat. I think they know that that's the same story over and over and over again. I was going to say, I think what we're looking at in the world map is the fallout of a great fight between Kunavang and the Deep Sea Dragon. And maybe, you know, how we cleanse Kunavang manages to cleanse its masters. I don't know. I think there was some big fight, but Kunavang probably is alive, actually. Is Kunavang going to be alive in the X-Pack? Big question. Exciting question. I don't know. There you go. I talked myself out of it. I talked because Kunavang's in the trailer. Well, but what if that's a vision of the past? That might be a scrying pool vision because of all the bubbles and stuff. And Aureen's currently sitting next to the scrying pool. This is not the place to say this, but whatever. Anyone who watched my story replay, but nonetheless isn't following other press, go to the Guild Wars 2 official channel. The day after my replay finished, and this was really cool, the timing was awesome, a new story beat for Guild Wars 2. Actually, I'll just put it on. Why don't I just put it on? Nah, no, I wouldn't put it on. There's a video, you should check it out. Timey in the lab. There's like another cutscene. And it's Tybee in the lab basically recapping everything up till now. It's like a 3-minute new cutscene. New voice acting from Timey, new animations, recapping the events of the game. And it's kind of one last little bit from her there in the Eye of the North. And it's good. It's pretty good. So yeah. Alright, okay, so guys. The remainder of this video will be live comments. As long as they're coming, I'll keep answering. And keep trying to give us interesting footage of interesting areas around the world. If you tried a question earlier and you want to copy paste it because you think it's a really good one, just try again. Because I'm not scrolling up. I'm just seeing what's there. Okay. WP, silly question, but did you see any mantids? I loved I love that enemy, but I haven't seen any of them in the previews of Xingji. No, I'm a little bit disappointed in the fauna variety. I was happy to see that there's those new kinds of crabs. But, there's like a rant I'm sitting on. I really think they did press for this X-Pack very badly. I really think they didn't do well. I did not get the opportunity to do the content I should have had the opportunity to have done. I mean, Christ, look at my Echovald Forest video that I just put up. What have I got to show you? Guys, I found a white crane off on the side. I mean, really? Why can't I show you the Kappa? Why can't I show you the Naga? Why can't I? There's a lot that I'm kind of grumpy about. But I'll save it till after End of Dragons, and you know, that's just petty nonsense that's on my side. It doesn't actually matter about the product, and right now we should be talking about the product. So, no, I didn't see any mantids, and part of that's the kind of press I was allowed to do, but the other side of it is I just don't think there are any mantids. I don't think that's a part of End of Dragons that they've done. And I'd love to have like a little interview with the creature designer where I ask them, hey, what did you do? How did you pick one thing, not the other? I'd love to have a bit of candid conversation in an interview I could put up, but you got none of it, so... yeah, I like the mantids as well. You know, they're not. I like them in the way that I like the desolation. You know, they're gross little pestilence, aren't they? But they're cool, and they would be cool with Goric, wouldn't they? In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Goric says a little something about the mantids at some point, right? I'm pretty sure we'll see that. We'll see Goric being like, hey, I heard about a pestilence here. But, I don't know whether they'll actually be there. Maybe they're a Living World Season 6 candidate. I say that in air quotes because who knows what they're doing. Next question. Could the Deep Sea Dragon potentially be related to Kralkatorrik in any way? I think it could be related to any of the dragons in as much as they're talking about mother, and the way Jormag spoke, it could have just been a term of phrase. But Jormag was using these phrases like sister for Aurene, and grandniece for Aurene, and twin and brother for Primordus. They've kind of, through the Icebrood saga, started suggesting there's like shared lineage and heritage perhaps between all the Elder Dragons. Before now, I don't like that direction for the story, for what it's worth. I preferred this idea of Tyrrell as just this crazy chaotic soup in which apex predators of any species might arise, or any species of dragon, let me put it that way, any variety of dragon, and end up consuming magic, and you know, just where the chips fall. It just so happens that Kralkatorrik ended up as one of the big 6 apex creatures. But I think what ArenaNet might be trying to do is really try and create a more tangible sense that they're all related in some way, that the magic has created the physiological differences between them, perhaps, is something that they'll do. That the capacity to consume magic is in a select few lineages, blah, 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 blah. And when they do that, you know, they can draw any kind of comparison between the two. I think that's a very curious question for you to have asked me there, but I can't really talk about why. I think I know why you've asked me that question, but we'll come to that in a few days. Next. I'm sorry if you already talked about this before, but what are your thoughts on the new music genre? I don't know if I like it compared to the traditional style of music. Well, they're doing a weird thing at the moment where I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but they allowed content creators that make music to remix their soundtrack. And then now they're hosting it, right? I don't think that a lot of the music you're listening right now is actual music from in-game. I think it's like fan-made remixes that you don't have. What's the website? Oh my god, why am I forgetting? What's the Deviant Art but for music website? And there's like tons of video game remixes on there. So anyway, I think that's all it is. As far as the actual soundtrack itself is concerned, look, I'm a pretty much massive and unnecessarily massive fanboy of McLean Demir and the work that he and his colleagues have done. Ever since they stepped up. Honestly, when I look at my favorite tracks in the game, invariably it's that man. So I have a huge amount of faith that the soundtrack will be great, and the live stream that they did, just the professionalism and all the effort that went into like learning about how Korean music sounds and stuff, it's just incredible to me. So I have very high hopes. I think it'll be great. And in fact, from my early access stuff, you can actually hear the music to a fairly good degree. One of the videos I wanted to make, and I mean, I might still make this, but I wanted to do an immersive variety of all my footage, where it's not me and Boots talking. It's not any commentary at all. You just hear the sights and sounds of the Echo Vowed and all that. But that's a weird one where it's like, you know, if I had another job, if my livelihood wasn't tied to this and this was a pure hobbyist thing, I'd do all kinds of stuff like that because I love videos like that and I just want to do it for the documentation, so to speak. But I don't know whether people would really watch it. I remember when POF came out, I did a whole video just on character select and people were like disliking it and saying this is lazy, this isn't right. But I just wanted it to be out there, you know. So I was a bit leery about making that kind of video this time. And the truth is, we're only a few days away from release now, so it's not like because they put it right at the end. I'll stop myself before I go off on a massive rant. So yeah, I just, I think it's probably not worth it now. But if you had that video, you would have heard the music, like the meta event music and stuff a lot better, and it is good. It sounds good, man. Okay, next question. Do I think there'll be any Lissa-related story, early, either in End of Dragons or going forwards? Do you think she will have a bigger role in the story? Do I think there will be? This is a really nasty question because my answer to it absolutely telegraphs my faith in the writing team. Look, here's what I'll open by saying. I absolutely believe there should be Lissa's story. I think there are massive gaps dating back to Season 3 and the Balthazar is Lazarus stuff that really deserve an answer for this story to be coherent and to make sense. I think Lissa is the linchpin for all of that. I'm a huge Lissa fanboy. Actually, I've always considered myself a massive Lissa fanboy, always. I mean, Christ, I have multiple characters on my account named after Lissa. You know, it's all from being a Mesmer in Guild Wars 1 and so on. And I've always talked to N forever at length about how I kind of don't want to see Lissa because she's supposed to be paradoxical and you make her tangible and she's not anymore and all this kind of stuff. But I'll tell you what, Cossage, I think, is a bigger Lissa fanboy than even me. I mean, Cossage is obsessed with Lissa. Cossage has sent me so many messages about Lissa recently, it's unreal. So I don't know, I'm kind of questioning my status as Lissa fanboy here at the moment. I think Lissa needs to be there. If I was there, if I had any say in the writer's room, I would actually dedicate good chunks of either End of Dragons itself or Season 6, if it exists or what it looks like, to Lissa. Because I think it has to be there. And they need to do it in a lot of smart ways. For what it's worth, I think Menzies as well and the Shadow Army. Moving on from that, though, your question is, do I think they'll do it? Now, here's the problem. What I actually see from End of Dragons is a bunch of new lore about the Jade Tech stuff and about the speakers and, you know, emphasis on old Cantha stuff that, like, they're almost obligated to do, like Jade Brotherhood and, you know, the old locales and all the Tengu stuff and how the city has moved into the future and all the ministries, and that's all good stuff that I would expect from Cantha. But it's like, this expansion to me looks every bit as overstuffed as POF did. POF had 3 big antagonists and could only tell the story of one of them. So, you know, and then they had to do the rest in Living World, and it did them rushed in Living World. So, I don't know, are we headed to a cliff edge again because it's too much content, too much to do, too fast? I don't know. Do I think they'll do Lissa? I have no idea if they will, but I wish they will. And I hope that they can do it in a good way. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying as well in my big story replay. In a lot of ways, I'm kind of not happy that this Cantha is that this expansion is Cantha. There's actually 2 expansions going on here, guys. 2 expansions that Guild Wars needs. One of the expansions is the end of the Dragon Saga. Okay. That expansion talks about the Deep Sea Dragon. That expansion talks about Mother. That expansion talks about Lissa. That expansion talks about all the characters we've known to come to know and love, right? There's that expansion. The second expansion is a Cantha expansion. And that expansion talks about Marjorie. And that expansion talks about Timey's illness and Jade Tech and the Jade Brotherhood. They're 2 stories. You don't have to pair them together. By pairing them together, they've just got this inferno, this whirlwind of things to talk about. And what is the #1 crime of Guild Wars 2 storytelling? That it does not go deep enough. How can they go deep when they've got like a banquet table of stuff to do, you know? They're 2 different expansions and they're smashed together right now. And again, it's sort of baffling to me because it's another one of those things where it's like, well, look, if they're trying to make a Guild Wars 3 or a Guild Wars mobile game, or they don't care about Guild Wars 2 anymore, I get smashing it all together because they only have limited time, they want to move on. I get it in that context. But that's not what End of Dragons ever was, as far as I can tell. End of Dragons was always a moment to say, no, let's do Guild Wars 2 full-time. We just don't give a shit about Elder Dragon's story anymore. That's what it looks like. It's all the rushing, you know? It's this rushing. It's just crazy to me. So, I don't know. Will they do Lissa? I hope so. I don't know. Next question. WP, it's 1:30 now. You've got to get some sleep. I don't know, because I just slept from 5 till 11, man. I had a 6-hour, I say nap. I mean, you're not going to call that a nap, are you? Man, I shouldn't have had that cheesecake in the afternoon. I do love me some cheesecake, though. Oh. Actually, I'll tell you the truth. It was raspberry cheesecake from Morrison's. And it wasn't very good. Well, no, it was okay. But it wasn't very flavorful. I think because it was a bit off. You know, it was at that point where the base wasn't very crumbly anymore. The base was getting a bit soggy. You know, it was breaking apart. So, anyway, I had some cheesecake. What else did I have? I had an amazing lunch there. I had some barbecue chicken, which was great. I had a proper, like, fat man's lunch. and then I had a sugar crash, essentially, is what happened. So, screw it, I'll go to bed. It's Sunday, it's 11 p.m. All right, well, you had a donation. Thank you very much. Again, any donation, you ask me whatever question, big or small, I'll do it. This is from Daniel Makesner, who says, hey, WP, I had an idea how to deal with the magic from the Elder Dragons. What if Aurene created new ley lines? Where did ley lines come from? Maybe some E? Oh, sorry. Maybe some Elder Dragons of old created them. Or maybe this is BS. Well, I talked to Boots a little bit about this in the Echobald. This is a great question. This is another thing that's on the banquet table, right? On the Echobald stream. I just said stream. That was a video, wasn't it? I don't know what they're doing. Boots kind of went on about Aurene splits magic into light. Someone else is splitting it into dark, which doesn't really make any sense, but I couldn't have a big lore conversation with him. It was just casual commentary. Someone accused me of not being very funny. What was it? They said I was kind of humorless in those videos. And not joking around as much as I could have been. And I think that's a fair accusation. That's a fair criticism of me. I was a bit humorless. And I wasn't really indulging Boots in any way. But I was just trying to keep the conversation going about the new content as best I could, you know. I don't know. Maybe I messed up there a little bit. But this was one of those moments where I kind of just hurried us out of the conversation because I don't really buy what he was talking about. But it does strike me that they're doing something about ley lines and magic and shadow and light. It's like they're adding a whole new rung of MacGuffininess to the magic lore in Guild Wars, which I'm actually really worried about. Okay, alright, well, hold on. We've always known the Deep Sea Dragon is meant to be like horror dragon, okay? Right, they're all scary, they're all dangerous. And Dragon of Death, Zaitan, Jormag actually very creepy and very persuasive, and they did horror stuff in Bureau really well. Again, the Icebrood Saga I actually view extremely highly for the first 3 episodes. First 4 episodes, counting Forge and Steel. I mean, I think it is really good. And so all of that gives me... So we have the Deep Sea Dragon. I think we're in for a horror show. I think we're in for something scary. And for a lot of people, they've been thinking, you know, Horror of the Depths tentacle monsters. But I think ArenaNet are going to do like this darkness shadow magic type thing to kind of start justifying some of that. You know, as a sidebar, I was really kind of disappointed to see that shadow creature in the Echovald Forest as well, in the meta event. It's just like a destroyer model we've seen before. That's like living world stuff. Is there really not I really hope there's a whole new group of deep sea dragon minions, right? I hope there's a new army and new enemies, you know, like how POF gave us the Awakened and stuff. There's got to be new stuff, right? It felt very living worldy to me to think, okay, is that a deep sea dragon minion or something? What is this shadow stuff, you know? Anyway, I think that they're gonna be talking about ley lines, and yeah, maybe the construction of ley lines. Maybe how Aurene can break them into different pieces, but this other dragon's combining them and it's shadow. I don't know what they're going to do, but it strikes me that what they're going to try and do, if they are going into like aetherology, so to speak, you know, like how Final Fantasy does, is it's going to be a real burden. It's going to be a lot of time standing around talking about that stuff. And I don't know, hopefully they make it all sound like it makes sense and you know, and connects to old lore and whatever. It's a hell of a job they've got. If they're really going to try and make the magical science work and connect, it's a hell of a job. And I'm really keen to play it and see how it goes. Next question. Do you think it's odd how we are supposed to be taking on the deep sea dragon and yet have seen nothing in relation to its minions' corruptions? Well, I actually have high hopes about this. I actually kind of think that they've specifically been hiding it from us in the press and the community, so that it's like I think that all their leery skittishness about spoilers, I think that that's all about deep sea dragon stuff, all of it. And I think they probably do have some really cool things for us. I don't know whether it opens with Lion's Arch getting attacked by Hydra and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if they go that far, but yeah, I think they're just hiding it. I don't think it's odd. And I think when you get in game, it won't feel odd either. Like, for example, I bet the Jade Sea is absolutely full of deep sea dragon minions. And that's why on the Jade Sea stream, they disabled all events and all NPCs and all of that stuff, you know. If the Jade Sea is like the end game map of the expansion, and again, we don't know like how the progression and stuff works, I think at that point, yeah, it's going to be chock-a-block with them. And they're just trying to hide it. Which is an interesting take, I suppose. We had another donation question. This is from 3 Eternal. Thank you very much, man. Hey, what if Kralkatorix said mother because he got a vision where Aurene became mother of a new generation of peaceful dragons? That's brilliant. That's a really cool theory. You think there's like a prophetic side of it? You think he's talking to Aurene? I can totally see that they do that. I can totally see that ArenaNet want to turn our expectations of that word on its head, and that they don't want to engage in this idea of where the Elder Dragons came from. They want to keep it as a mystery. Like, think about that Timey dialogue earlier, right near the end, where Goric and Timey are chatting about Mother, and Timey's like, he was just talking about his mother or something. There's nothing to it. There's, you know, that idea, there's nothing to it. Will you guys shut up? I think they would like to play with, so they might go for that. Yeah, I could totally see it. Do you think the Aether Blades will have a good storyline, or it's just a segue into the Deep Sea Dragon story arc? Yeah, exactly. The Aether Blades as well. When I mentioned a second ago, I really believe there's 2 expansions, right? The Cantha expansion is the Aether Blade expansion. The Aether Blades don't need to have a stake in this, not unless they try and tie all the Scarlet stuff in, and they could do it amazing. I mean, do I think they'll have a big story, or it's just a segue? I think they'll have a good story going through it. So in one of the videos I watched today, they actually had a little bit of footage of the Mytrin strike. So, like a tiny little bit of it there. So I'm guessing that this is early in the X-Pack. So the question is, once she's down, is she an ally? Where does it go? What does it mean? I don't know. I kind of feel like because Marjorie is in the expansion, Mytrin might bounce off of her a lot. So there's a lot of, like, stuff there. So, yeah. I think they could do stuff with her. Aether Blades feel like the glue between the stories. Exactly, yeah. They do. They do. WP, how much do you think Guild Wars 2 would benefit from a UI tech overhaul? For a while, I've thought of Bestiary and Real Legendary Armory would benefit lore building. I hate the word overhaul, man, by the way. I hate the word overhaul. It's such like a non-descriptive way. Literally all overhaul means, I think, is a lot of time and money spent on a thing. And nobody wants to hear that. Nobody ever wants to hear that in a suggestion. The best suggestions are big bang for buck suggestions. So I never want to hear the word overhaul. Also, look, I'm a big fan of the bestiary. I did my own lore concepts for it and mock-ups in the past. And a better armory. Yes, I'm disappointed in those sides of the armory. But they would not be at the top of my list for things Guild Wars needs, no. There's probably about 30 or 40 other changes and other things that I really think they need to focus on first before doing that. Look, let's talk in 2030, okay? When you're here watching WoodenPotatoes in 2030, and believe me, I'll be here, we'll see what baseline systems they have. Okay, I'll tell you this. If in 2030... I still have a list of 30 or 40 things I think Guild Wars needs to do that are higher priority than a bestiary. Remind me of this moment, and I'll quit the game on the spot. Okay? Because clearly, 20 years is long enough. Okay? So, someone bookmark it. Put an alarm on your phones. Let's go to another map. Okay, a few more questions here, guys. I don't want this to be too long. I think about 2 hours is a good length for someone on the YouTube channel clicking the video and sort of saying, of course, I'm being attacked. So, 10 more minutes here for the last few questions. It's a shame because I kind of want to keep playing, but all these videos with massive long timestamps. Even though we are, well, you know, I'm happy to do long videos right near the end of the road. You know, these last few episodes of End of Dragons daily, in air quotes, can be big ones. What's a pretty place? Sandswept. Let's try this. It's not quite the Is Not Isles vacation paradise I want it to be, but it'll do. We can do them rapid fire as well, you know, like people do at conventions and stuff. I'll go for the most recent comment that I see. Do you feel Aurene needs to die to conclude the dragon story? Actually, no. No, I don't. Final Fantasy, actually, and some TV that I've been watching, a few things. The past few years, I've changed my mind about a lot of stuff. And I actually think that talking about character deaths is sort of a low-rate way of discussing story. How do I explain this? You don't have to you almost don't have to kill anyone. You just need to move them off screen, you know? Like, they didn't have to kill Rox. They just gave her a sort of a semi-happy ending in Sandswept with the Omicron. And the thing is, oh yeah, and if you donate in rapid fire, I'll obviously pick your questions there. Now, what ArenaNet messed up is they didn't give Rox a proper goodbye. We never waved goodbye to her. We never, you know, had a moment to cry and leave, you know? Which sucks, but that's a separate problem. I don't think you have to kill these people. So who's the big, like, Timey? Everyone talking about, oh, are they going to kill Timey, blah, 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 blah. I don't actually think you even need to kill her to retire a character. There's a lot of ways to retire a character. And in a way, retiring them without killing them preserves the complexity of the world and the sense there's lots of people around and all that kind of stuff. So I've actually become more of a believer of not killing characters. And I think when I listen to people talking about Guild Wars story and stuff, they're all obsessed with character deaths. And like Bram as well, you know, Bram dying or not at the end of the Icebrood Saga. You know, I actually don't think it's that bad that Bram survives the Icebrood Saga if he just has an actual feeling of being retired, you know, at the end. He didn't have to die, and that's a criticism I myself have sort of gone back on since the end of the Icebrood Saga. I don't think it's really actually even that important. That's kind of my new opinion about it. And I think Final Fantasy, the reason I mentioned that, is a good example. They never kill their goddamn characters. They're actually really tacky with their storytelling. They're way more tacky than Guild Wars. They'll kill someone only to reveal they're alive. Constantly. ArenaNet are more classy than that. ArenaNet don't do that. Dead is dead in Guild Wars. Dead is not dead in Final Fantasy. And they're so skittish about it. And yeah, actually, they have very credible, fun characters that you can really enjoy and spend a lot of time with. So yeah, that's kind of what I think at the moment. There's a lot more I could talk about the psychology of killing a character so you have a definitive reason to move on and stuff, but I think you can provide those definitive reasons elsewhere. Oh man, I keep circling around another story thing. Man, there's a lot of sharks here, eh? What was the other story thing that I wanted to... Wow, it's almost like the sharks don't want me in this area of the water. I can't remember. I had some other really important anecdote I want to give about the story. But it's gone. It's gone now. Yeah, so for example, Heartlust says, saying goodbye to Gosetsu after his story concluded was 100 times sadder than his fake death in 4.0. For me in the story right now, I haven't played Endwalker, so he's just off screen. I know he's back in Endwalker very briefly, but I don't know how that's handled. Okay, anyway, oh my god, we had some donations there. Oh no, we had 2. Okay, Flim, thank you so much with the $6 Canadian. That's really nice of you, man. With a mention of shadow and light. Understanding balance, yin and yang. If Aureen becomes the last dragon, what is the balance opposite of Aureen? Well, this would be Kunavang or the Deep Sea Dragon, if it turns out to be an ally or whatever, right? I mean, what you're doing there is you're really probing and putting your fan theory there of what the new status quo would be, right? Yeah, so the idea of do they have to kill Aureen, by the way, they could just move her into the mists or whatever, you know, do some Captain Marvel stuff. And she just, you know, just make a reason for her not really to be influencing or interacting with us in a major way. And not in a way that's shrouded in mystery, so there's a big question mark, and everyone wants to see continued developments, which is what they did with the human gods. I mean, it's some actual finality to the thing, and she still doesn't have to be dead. All that said, I think the most compelling penultimate boss of the expansion is an Aureen boss. So I kind of want to fight Aureen. I want some grim moments here, man. I think that fighting Aureen would be really good, given that we're like at the parent. You know, what did the Ice Brood Saga? It had a parent doing in their kid, and now we have to go through it at the end of Dragons. I think there's a nice tie there and stuff. And the same with Timey. I'm a big fan of this idea that Timey augments herself with Jade tech to sustain herself, only for it to turn out that Jade's tech is dragon tech and has to be done away with. And unfortunately, we're going to have to make the active decision to shut Timey down. And some kind of melodrama out of that would be quite good. Not too much melodrama, you know, but a bit of melodrama. Guild Wars is okay. Guild Wars has a really good balance of melodrama as well, actually. All right, and then the other question here from Raynath. How long we got here? We got 3 minutes. Rapid fire. I will promise I'll go rapid fire after this. I don't expect a hidden thing like the Griffin, but do you think ArenaNet is disabling the API key until just after launch to keep something hidden as a surprise? Oh, I think for sure that's smart. Yeah, that's definitely smart of them to do. I hadn't considered that, but I think that might be there. For sure. I mean, look, this is one of those things. I kind of get a bit aggravated when I read some of these messages. Because people are... Obviously, there's hidden stuff. There's hidden plot details. There's hidden achievement details. There's hidden bosses. You know, in as much as people... They're not spoiling the content of the expansion yet. So, yeah, hidden. But, I mean, we're talking about a giant, transformative, really well-funded, amazing thing, right? That's what we're talking about. And that something on that scale that is also hidden. I don't know whether I'm a big bar of it. Wow, what happened to my thing here? I don't know. Should I just have Reshade looking like this? I really don't want to break my footage. Okay, now for an important question. When will I do Elden Ring? I was actually watching a little bit of Dark Souls stuff from Mike the other day, and he got me a little bit more intrigued by the game again, which I hadn't been for a while. I don't know. I think I'd do Elden Ring, like, down the line. Apparently, I saw on Reddit it was being badly reviewed because of, like, graphic settings and chromatic aberration being forced on people and stuff. But apparently everywhere else is getting really good reviews, so I don't know. Am I going to finish my FF playthrough? Yes, after End of Dragons. They were secretive about the mastery for Arborstone. Could they be hiding a 6 home instance-like place, this time with something akin to player housing? No, there's not going to... Well, you could use Arborstone as a player instance if you want, just like you can use the Sun's Refuge, just like you can use the Eye of the North. But, I mean, beyond that, don't expect anything really major. What do you mean by player housing? You want all of your Black Lion nodes and personal story characters to sit around there? I mean, maybe they could do that, but is that really the most amazing feature? Do you think Casimir will have just as big of a role in End of Dragons as Marjorie, or more of a background side character? Yeah, I don't really get what they're doing with Casimir. She had a role to play in POF with her whole faith. I don't really know what's so interesting about her in the context of Cantha. Marjorie's interesting. She's got heritage there. Detective Marjorie. There's a lot to play off of in a big corrupt city. What's Casimir got? I really don't know. Have I gotten anything story-related spoiled from Endwalker? I know the name of 2 trials. But they're not... apparently that's not too big of a spoiler. And it's kind of an expectation that those were going to be fights anyway, so... that's it. That's all I know. Other than that, I have not been spoiled, and I'm really excited, and I'm really good to go. Do I know what spec I'll be playing the first time through? Probably light armor. Might be Harbinger. Or, if not... what I really want to play is Willbender first, but I don't have heavy legendary, so it might be a bit lame. I mean, I can obviously always just put Zerk on there, but I would probably want to put Marauder and mess around with it a bunch. So I don't know. I think Harbinger will be what I play. The downside to Harbinger is Shroud-based stuff culls audio, and I want to make good footage of it. I don't want to constantly cull NPC audio out, so that would suck. Okay, we're now going overtime, so real quick. Do I think the Aether Blades will have a good storyline, or is it a segue? I already answered that. What? How did you miss that? We had a whole conversation about that just now. Do you enjoy Harbinger more than in the beta? No, I enjoyed it less. In the beta, I loved it. Man, only because it was so OP. I don't actually think it's a good spec, but I think it was OP enough that it held my attention. And I just slapped a random build on. Oh, the Shadow Behemoths just died. I just missed it. I was hoping to get footage of it though. Have you seen any veterans or champions doing different skills compared to a normal mob? No, because I got so little chance to have a hands-on with the game and so little chance to produce good stuff for you guys. Okay, so there you go, guys. That's End of Dragons Daily. I'll be back tomorrow for more Q&A, so keep an eye out for it. Also, I do want to confirm, I am going to I'm going to stream my End of Dragons experiences. I'm actually going to make videos about my blind stuff. See, Kerry is at work. So I'm just going to be sitting around all day. So I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna play the game with you guys blind. It will all be there. My current plan is I'm gonna do straight up my first experiences in End of Dragons. Will all be live for you guys to see. There will be a video. This is going to be a YouTube project, not a Twitch project. It's a YouTube project, just like the story playthrough. But it's not going in the story playthrough playlist, okay? It's going to be on YouTube. The videos will be here on YouTube. Now, I appreciate people don't want to watch the content because of spoilers. So you can watch it at your own leisure at any time. I play it very slow, by the way. So I could play like 7 to 9 hours of End of Dragons, and I will probably not be as far ahead in the story as you guys are. So trust me, that's not going to be a problem, but you'll get to see me exploring all of it. I am going to have it all there. And my plan as well is at the end of the day, I want to do a completely bog standard normal YouTube video recapping my experiences of the day. Now, I've set my alarms and everything up, right? I've booked myself in for 2 weeks of that. So the first 2 weeks of End of Dragons, I will be here playing End of Dragons, giving you guys the good stuff. And then when Kerry gets home from work, I'm out. I'm going to play with her. I'm going to go play the game privately. So what will happen is between every video, I'll have a bunch of anecdotes and stuff. But yeah, you will see it all. Basically, I'm going to do my Path of Fire style, but I'm going to add in this extra stuff. So if you want to see me there at launch, I'll be there in a couple of days. And it will be much like exactly like this, okay? I'll have like proper schedule and start date out for you guys very soon. But that's the current plan. Next couple of days will be these, and then we'll be in there playing End of Dragons itself. So I did want to make that little announcement to you guys. I'm going to put that in a separate video as well, just so that everybody's aware. And yeah, tomorrow as well, you'll get to see my early access stuff with Boots in Kaineng. So that should be fun. So I'll have a Q&A, I'll have early access in Kaineng. And I just want to get the engines firing for the start of the X-Pack. So, and that's another reason why I don't want this to be too long. So there you go, that's 2 hours of Q&A. Hopefully that makes up for some of the missed days over Christmas. Remember how this series started? It was bite-sized? Yeah, 2 hours apart now. But there you go. That's the idea, guys. Thanks very much for watching. Let me know what you think. Join me in Discord for any kind of conversation. Oh, and if you guys want to go check out my Stellaris mod as well, there's an insane amount of changes on that. I'm looking for suggestions. This is pretty shameless, but I'm going to do it. Here, please take a look in the live chat. If anyone knows anything about Stellaris or was interested in my mod, I really want contributors. I really want people to help me here. So if you click this link real quick, you'll see there's a bunch of pages. If you have fun ideas for Tyrian traits, you know, custom traits and stuff, you can right click on any cell and suggest an idea, right? Suggest a civic, suggest an origin. For if you go to the second page, the pre-scripted Tyrian empires, I've got loads of details I want filled in about like how the humans play, how the Crichtons play, how the Orions play. There's just loads of things. Special traits, special relics. Just have a browse, and if you right-click or comment on any cell, that'd be really cool. Anyway, yeah, so that's another side thing. Thanks very much for watching End of Dragons Daily, and I will see you guys on the next one very soon. Take care now, guys. Hope you have a lovely night. Bye-bye now. We're going to go work on my reshade preset now. Try and get this working. Yeah, Stellaris 3.3 came out, exactly. That's why I've been looking at it a lot. Alright, bye-bye now, guys.